And it's something that's been, let me just share screen first, do the usual messing around. This started, I don't know how this started off really, but I'm quite into TikTok anyway. I'm sure I might have mentioned it in the past. But I'll talk about it as about TikTok generally, and about particularly something that's called core. And I'm going to explore whether it is actually a new video or art form, and what its relationship with Dada is, if any. It's also really about Gen Z. Are you familiar with the way in which they distinguish different generations?
No.
Well, you are now. So I think we're all, there might be some in the silent generation, but by and large, we're mainly baby boomers. Is that right on that criteria? Whereas my kids are millennials, but the generation after my kids are known as Gen Z, Generation Z, or Z.
Generation
X.
Why?
Well, who knows? I don't know how all these names got. It's just the ones that are generally accepted. They have been called other things, and then it's one which seems to lead off.
Mine's Generation X. Yeah.
All right.
I don't see why you have to give names to people born between certain dates. I mean, what? Why? Categorizing people into lumps when people are not lumpable together.
Absolutely.
Well, hang on a minute. Pensioners
it just makes
together.
me really cross.
It depends what you're using it for, though, doesn't it? As you say, pensioners, there are pensioners, and you have to be
get some money after a certain age. Yeah. So
all baby boomers are bad because they've had it better than anybody else. It's not.
Yeah, well, that's a different thing.
Let's not talk about what generation we're all in just now, because I'm moving on. So core, it's a TikTok video style, and I think you're all familiar with what TikTok is. I'm sure you've heard about it on the congressional hearings and so forth about it. It's a TikTok video style, and it's characterized by amateurish edits of short clips mined from social media, YouTube, film scenes, and news segments alongside emotionally rousing music. That's what core is, because TikTok videos are, generally speaking, a bit something like a minute, 2 minutes, though there are long form ones now up to about 5 or 6 minutes. So the sort of suffix, the core suffix has been used for all sorts of different genres, including this one is nightcore, followed by normcore, and there's a whole series of them which it got a bit out of hand, I think. Put you over there. Is cottagecore, which I like because it's got pictures of flowers, which is nice. And this is dreamcore, an example of dreamcore, getting a bit towards the more core style. Things are about to get weird. An aesthetic that can cause you to have a panic attack.
What's cottagecore, Bernard?
Cottagecore. It means having lots of things about flowers and being in gardens, I think.
And cake.
Nothing to do with cottaging, then.
As far as I know, I'm sure that's some other sort of core. It's probably cottaging core. I mean, there are cores for everything, it would seem now. But I like the plant thing. The thing's on the right. It's not cake, is it? I thought it was just plants, is it not? Anyway.
No, it's cake. It's a cake with edible flowers on the top.
Oh, very nice. Very
Look,
nice.
There's a slice come out of it. You can see the slice.
You're quite right. Well observed.
Yum.
This is dreamcore. Somebody taking a photo, girl in the middle, some sort of, you can see it's made up of pastiche kind of things. And then you get onto core itself, which is the daddy of them all, or the one that brings them all together. And this is just an example of what a core would look like. And to give a couple of examples, by November last year, core had amassed roughly 39.8 million views on TikTok. We're talking in huge numbers here. I think it's something like 40% of the US population is on TikTok, which is probably why they want to ban it, because it's Chinese and not American.
Oh, you don't even smile.
And as always, Wakanda forever.
suppose you have to look to see what
Rubbish.
it is. Ridiculous.
All your comments are perfectly valid. So that's one example of it. Here's another one. This has got 2.6 million views. And the TikTok account, Core Aesthetic, has over 1 million followers that looks at them all. And so let's have a look at this one.
Like a 3.
A 1.
Like a 3?
I feel nothing for
You think
you.
others would agree?
Absolutely.
Why is every pretty girl with a
Yeah.
horrible looking man?
I don't look good. I've never in my entire life had anyone telling me I look good.
Yeah, what I thought it was good at is it's actually giving an interpretation of how people look at TikTok. You know, on the lying on the bed with your screen and scrolling through, you know, going through scroll after scroll after scroll. And it was actually a critique of that, I thought, that particular one.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was
I
David
think so.
Cartier.
Yeah.
Now, on to Dada. The Dada movement, I'm sure you've all heard of Dada, haven't you? Even if you don't know that much about it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know where the actual term comes from? Well, some think it's just what the sort of thing a child might first say, Dada. Another is it's something like Romanian for yes, yes. Another is that they had a session where somebody stuck a dagger into a dictionary and came out with a particular one, which was a Spanish word for something or other. Anyway, it doesn't really mean anything. But the more I've looked into it, the more interested in Dada I've become. Actually, I find it more interesting than the TikTok, if you like, follow on from it. So it emerged in the early 20th century as a response to the horrors of World War I and the perceived hypocrisy and corruption of traditional art and culture. And they rejected traditional artistic techniques and materials and instead embraced unconventional, often nonsensical and anarchic forms of expression. Now, is everybody familiar with this?
Yeah.
Which shows it's had an impact, regardless of what you think about it. It's had an impact. And this was it's, you know, do you know what it's actually entitled? Fountain.
Fountain.
It's by Marcel Duchamp. It was in 1917, while the First World War was still going on. And it's widely now seen as a kind of an icon of modern art, 20th century art. The original urinal has been lost, and it was usually presented on its back for exhibition purposes rather than upright, and was signed and dated Armut 1917. This is a 1964 replica by the Tate of it, and it's made from a glazed earthenware painted to resemble the original porcelain. So he just went to to a plumbing shop and bought one and then exhibited it. And I think a lot of people says, well, that's typical of your modern art. Anybody could do that. But the fact is, he did it. He's the one who's remembered, and we're still talking about him 100 years on. So there you go. That's Marcel Duchamp. I think this is a great picture. It's taken in Paris in 1920. And it includes, I could give you all the names, but I don't think you'd recognize many of them. Perhaps the only one I remember there is at bottom right is André Breton. The thing is, Dada covered art, covered poetry, collage, drama, presentations, all sorts of things.
Man Ray, the photographer of Dada.
Man Ray, indeed. I think I might have an example of that come up. And you could say that a lot of modern art learned from what they did, even though it only went on really as an effective form into the late 20s. And the interesting thing as well, it was very international. It wasn't just based in one country. It started off Germany, France, Switzerland, but it was popular in America, and not so much in this country. There you go.
Do you know who the woman is? She looks familiar.
Céline Arnaud. The guy up above her looks a bit like Groucho Marx, doesn't he? But
He does, yeah.
One of them
And
looks
the
a bit
guy
like
above
Stan.
Andre Breton here, he reminds me of Clem Attlee. Dadaism it was early centers in something called the Cabaret Voltaire in Zurich in Switzerland. And that's because some of the, especially the German ones, had fled to Switzerland as they were seen as traitors because of the views they expressed. I love this picture as well. It's, I don't know what your German's like, but it's the grand opening of the first Dada exhibition, the International Dada Fair in Berlin on the 5th of June, 1920. The central figure hanging from the ceiling is an effigy of a German officer with a pig's head. So you can see they very much were influenced by what had happened in the war and wanting to abandon all the kind of, I don't know, to me, it all looks quite exciting. And one of my favorite periods is the 1920s. Such an interesting time, wasn't it? There was such a lot going on, an awful lot of bad things going on, but incredible increase in plays and art and movements and politics. And
mainly in Berlin, yeah.
Yeah, especially in Berlin.
The rest of Germany was a bit straight-laced. Yeah.
Yes, and it certainly wasn't typical of the whole of Germany, as we were to find out. Anyway, so it developed in reaction to World War One. They rejected the logic, reason, and aestheticism of modern capitalist society, expressing nonsense, irrationality, and anti-bourgeois protest in their works. They expressed their discontent toward violence, war, and nationalism, and maintained political affinities with radical politics on the left wing and far left wing. And the one at the bottom, for us, this is Hugo Ball speaking, for us, art is not an end in itself, but it is an opportunity for the true perception and criticism of the times we live. And you can see that's one of the collages there. By the way, something I didn't realize, you know, it was seen as avant-garde. What does avant-garde mean?
It means opening before the things are happening.
Yeah.
And it's a response to things. I mean,
it doesn't mean avant as in
no.
It means literally it means advance guard, or what we would say vanguard. A woman Hannah Hock from Zurich. It's called Cut with the Kitchen Knife Through the Last Epoch of Weimar Beer Belly Culture in Germany. A collage of pasted papers in 1919. I think it looks great. Really like it. Anyway, the Dada Manifesto by Hugo Ball in 1916. This is an interesting one. That's Hugo Ball on the right. I think it looks pretty cool guy, doesn't he? So this is just an excerpt from it. Dada Johann Fuchsang Goethe, Dada Stendhal, Dada Dalai Lama, Buddha, Bible and Nietzsche, Dada Madada, Dada da da da. It's a question of connections and loosening them up a bit to start with. Again, I quite like his stuff. But Ball himself, he originally wanted to sign up in the First World War, and he was actually rejected because of health reasons. But he was, after the invasion of Belgium, he was very much disillusioned with it, saying, "The war is founded on a glaring mistake. Men have been confused with machines." He was considered a traitor in Germany, crossed the frontier with the cabaret performer and poet Emmy Hennings, whom he would marry in 1920, and settled in Zurich in Switzerland, where he continued his interest in anarchism. And it was taken of him reading Caruana at the Club Voltaire in Zurich in 1916. You can see it's in front of him. And what I'd like us to do, it's called Carouane, don't know how to pronounce it. I want us to each take a line in turn. It'll start with me, and then a line from Maureen, one from Val, one from Sandy, one from Nell, and one from Bill, and back to me. Okay? You ready? Don't just take it as it comes. Caruani. Jolifanto Bambla o Fali Bambla.
Rosigna Mcpfer Habla Orem. Egiga Garamen.
Ego bloiko rosala uye.
Holaka, holala.
Bosso, blago bung.
Bosso Fataka.
Ui.
Tampa Wula Wusa Olobo.
Hey.
Escatadore.
Shiga Zumbada.
Wulubu, Zabudu, Ulu, Sabudu.
Tumba ba umph.
Kusagoma.
Ba
Umph.
Well done, everybody. We got as confused as the poem, didn't we? There.
You can actually see a film of him doing this.
Oh, right.
It was filmed at the Cabaret Voltaire.
Wow. Look at him. Don't you think his outfit's terrific?
Brilliant.
There's quite a
And
bit of
there are
religious-
several readings of the poetry as well.
Yeah, there's like a religious feel about it. You know, the
Tall
tall
hat.
hat and the cloak.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, he
there's
didn't
something
spend a lot on
ritualistic.
materials, did he?
No.
It's the sort of thing your kids take to to some event that they. But I just think it's fabulous. I really like. So now, then we come to problems. What I've called bad Dada. It's usually seen, and quite rightly, because most of its the people who took it up was progressive and avant-garde, as we've and certainly very left-wing and anti-war. However, and it's a big however, some of its works and practices have been criticized for their misogynistic, racist, culturally appropriating, and anti-Semitic elements. Some artists created works that were openly misogynistic, objectifying and ridiculing women. Others incorporated racist stereotypes and appropriated imagery from non-European cultures without respect for their cultural significance. And I'm going on to a TikTok about this.
Part of that whole movement. Dada started right after World War I in 1916 and was a reaction against the horrors of war and is often noted as a disillusionment with Western bourgeoisie culture. So far so good, right? But here's the thing. In order to reject Western cultural norms, Dadaists would not just appropriate what they saw as African culture, they would also promote exaggerated stereotypes of African people and even engage in blackface. They also did this with indigenous cultures like Maori culture and Hopi culture. At the Cabaret Voltaire, the birthplace of the Dada movement, Richard Husselbeck would perform a Maori spell. Not a real one, almost definitely made up. There were these sound poems by people like Tristan Tzara, Hugo Ball, and Husselbeck, which were filled with fake, what they thought were African-sounding words. Husselbeck would literally shout "Oomba Oomba" at the end of some of these, and literally declared, "We want a new skin color." Their collaborators were more than happy to put on a new skin color. George Gross, after hearing what they called beautiful and music, performed in Berlin in blackface, wearing a straw hat and dancing a jig. They were very interested in this skin tone training that showed up a lot in the visual art, famously in Man Ray's Noir et Blanche, which was like, ooh, the African mask is white now and the white model is black now, which is inverted, ooh. And of course the woman behind these collages, Hannah Hoch, really loved taking things from the local ethnographic museums, so like sculptures from Africa and other places outside of Europe, and mixing them with white bodies. Truly, I would say it's like the collage version of blackface.
That wasn't confined to the Dadaists. The sort of influence of Africa and also China, well, Asia.
I think there are some quite reasonable criticisms of it, but you've also got to put people in the context of where they were when this happened. What they did was wrong. Some of those elements were wrong. I think the cultural appropriation accusation wasn't entirely fair in my view, but
Bernard, as well, that this is a pure example of looking at the content of something in comparison to accepted artistic terms, rather than accepting it as what it is, which is questioning everything.
yes, yeah.
I think it's using modern mores to look at historical ones. You
I
can't
agree.
work.
Anyway,
it's
let's
of the
move.
time, though, isn't it? It's historical.
It's of the time, and we have to take that into account. But I thought I should just at least raise it as one of the criticisms of it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, I think, that are people aware of the congressional hearing that was held on March 23rd last week, in which the TikTok CEO Xiaozi Chu was grilled for 5 hours in a very aggressive way by both Democrats and Republicans who joined force in this. And what was interesting in that, the only TikTok videos that these senators showed were core videos, which I thought was interesting in itself that they've done that. I'm going to try and show you some if I can.
Florida Congressman Gus Billirak is showing a series of depressing core TikTok videos, arguing that the app glorifies self-harm. The compilation presented at the hearing began with a stitch posted by TikToker Amon M9, referencing a well-known core video called Player Tip KYS. On the day of the hearing, Republican Twitter account RNC Research shared the compilation, where it gained over 11,000 views in under an hour. That day, TikToker Owens_TikTok reposted the clip with the text overlay, "Dude, no way." They literally played core TikTok in Congress. During another part of the hearing, a congresswoman played a slow-motion gun animation meme that she perceived as threatening. A TikTok of the moment was posted by Vice's account, Motherboard Vice, where it received roughly 5.4 million plays in less than a day. Another viral clip shows the moment when North Carolina Congressman Richard Hudson asked the CEO if TikTok accessed home Wi-Fi networks. The clip was posted by the CNET.com TikTok account, where it received roughly 8.9 million plays that day.
Well, a large part of it is sort of typical American demonizing China, and when a government does that, it takes people's minds off other shit.
Facebook have spent millions getting the support to get TikTok banned because TikTok's taken so many of its audience, and all the other styles like Instagram and YouTube are trying to have their own TikTok equivalents in it. I don't know if you've noticed on Facebook. They have all these shorts that you can watch as well. What I decided to do, I'd like to make a core video on the theme of old age. So I just this morning I went into Chat AI bot. How many minutes I've got? 2 minutes, and it gave me what I should do to do a storyboard of a story about about an elderly person walking slowly down the street, and there it shows all the various cuts I should get. Moving on, closing shot, music, a mellow instrumental tune, a reflective and sentimental mood, a text, overall tone, and the length should be very short. I used that image of an elderly person walking slowly down the street, and I went to DALL-E, and this generated the following images. Some of these images.
Wow.
Walking slowly down the street in the rain as painted by David Hockney. An image of an elderly person walking slowly down the street in the style of a 60s American comic book illustration as painted by Edvard Munch.
I don't think so.
Doesn't really work, that one. Maybe that's a bit more monkish, isn't it?
Yeah.
But they're quite interesting, aren't they?
They are interesting. But I'm with you, Nell. It should be 100-year-old running a marathon.
Well, I could have put that in just as easily.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I've got a pair of earrings. One's a question mark and one's an exclamation mark, and they're from a Dada exhibition.
Oh wow! Fantastic.
Wow.
Bet they're worth a lot now.
I doubt it.
Anyway, we're on the last minute. I made it to the end, just about.
Brilliant.
Well done.